if we look deeply into the curtailment problem, it's extremely severe in several provinces where there is a great concentration of renewable installation. For instance, 43% of the wind generation from Gansu province in 2016 was curtailed, and the number is 33% in 2017. And 32% of the solar generation from Xinjiang province is being curtailed, and the number is 22% in 2017. And a lot of people contribute that to lack of transmission. I think it is a very important issue, but in addition to that, there is also inefficiencies in dispatch, the lack of flexibility in the power system as a whole. On the generation side, it doesn't have quite as much as natural gas as we have in the United States, and then there is inflexibility in the coal, thermal fleet. The heating demand in the north requires the coal units to be on in order to provide the heat. And then, but in the bigger picture, I think there is an oversupply of electricity because China's economy is not growing quite as fast as it had been in the past 10-20 years. So this gradual economic slowdown is really making the electricity oversupply more a prominent issue. So the solutions are, for instance, building more transmission lines, implementing interregional renewable energy trading, improving the coal flexibility in the system, install more pumped hydro, natural gas, and also they have put on restrictions to limit the coal builds in order to alleviate some of the oversupply situation. And they are experimenting with the power market pilots in order to make the dispatch more efficient. I think a lot of the attention has been focused on the ultra high voltage transmission lines in China because no one else in the world is operating the grid as quite a high voltage. But I think that attention is a little bit misguided because the majority of the grid investment are actually in lower voltage transmission builds. Over 53 of the grid investment is in below 110 kV. And then in comparison, ultra high voltage, typically we're talking about transmission and infrastructure that are above 800 kV. So a lot of the investment are actually focused on rural grid development and distribution grid development. But nevertheless, ultra high voltage transmission, I think, plays a very important role in China. As of now, end of 2017, China has 7 UHV AC projects in operation and 13 UHV DC projects in operation, and a dozen of more are under development right now. But if we look at the projects by project, about half of them are for the transmission of either hydro or coal generation. But some of them are carrying renewable generation, such as the Hezhong UHV DC line and the Lingshao UHV DC line. In these cases, they bundle the wind generation with coal generation, and then the Zhouquan Hunan UHV DC line, Zhalute Qingzhou line bundles wind generation, solar generation, and coal generation. They do so in order to get a greater capacity utilization on the transmission grid to get their money's worth out of these big infrastructure projects, and then by the end of 2018, the total UHV transmission capacity is expected to reach about 143 gigawatts. So they have great capacity of moving a lot of electricity across the nation from the remote areas where the renewable resources are a lot better to population areas where they don't have a lot of renewable resources, but they have a huge demand. To increase the thermal power plant flexibility, usually there are 3 technical measures, and one is to install heat storage to decouple heat and power production, and the second is to optimize and retrofit burners and mills to achieve low load operation and increase low ramping speed. And the third is to bypass or partly bypass steam turbines or preheaters to increase heat production and to reduce the minimum load. The northeast part of China has been experimenting with down regulation market to incentivize the thermal plant to ramp down for several years now. And then the power market pilots around the country, they are still in design, but many of them have taken the ancillary service market into consideration. So if such a market exists, it could provide more incentives for the coal generation to provide flexibility to the system.